Anyone who's had a panic attack will know exactly how awful it feels, how frightening it feels, and this range of symptoms that seem to come out of nowhere. But have you ever wondered what's actually going on in your brain and in your body during a panic attack? Or why simple things like skipping a meal or breathing too fast can actually make it worse? I'm Dr. Kalinda Linder, clinical psychologist and CBT therapist, and today we're diving into the science of panic, including what your brain, your breath, and your blood chemistry are doing during an actual panic attack. Now, panic begins in the amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, and its job is to detect danger and react fast, as in 5 times faster than thought. And it does this by activating your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight or survival instinct. The tricky part, though, is that the amygdala part of the brain, the primitive brain, doesn't reason or think. It just does reflex and react. And if you start getting weird symptoms that seem to have no actual cause, that definitely counts as a threat. So the more symptoms you feel, the more it activates the amygdala. Now, the prefrontal part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex in front here, which is your rational brain, gets hijacked. And that's why you can't logic your way out of panic in the moment. Imagine that your prefrontal cortex is the CEO and board of directors running a business, and the amygdala is the security guard who's accidentally being triggered. So no wonder it feels so chaotic, because they're screaming at each other, as in there's a threat, but there's no threat. You're in danger, you're not in danger. Now, if there were an external threat, say a lion, the amygdala or security guard would take over completely and there'd be no conflict. But in a panic attack, they are both trying to control. So your thoughts will be very chaotic. And no wonder you'll feel like you're going crazy. But there are more things happening in the body when the fight or flight response gets activated. And let's have a look at these. So you release the rush of adrenaline and your heart rate goes up immediately. Your heart is beating rapidly, it's getting ready, activating systems for a fight or a flight. So blood rushes away from the torso, your chest and your stomach, and into your head and your limbs, because your head is going to be what you use to get out of danger, and your limbs will be your fighting and flighting. So you feel very cold in the torso and then hot and heavy in your head and in your limbs, which already feels quite strange. Digestion is also paused, since the blood had to leave the stomach and go to the limbs, which you will use for your fight or flight. So you get the void reflex, which is a strong peristaltic motion in your digestive tract. And what this leads to is an intense nausea and or needing to get to a bathroom very quickly, which does make sense, because if your food were just left sitting there and your digestion was paused, you'd start getting gassy, it would start fermenting, it could make you really sick, which would get in the way of survival. So from the survival or fight or flight perspective, it just gets the food out quickly. Now, back to the face and the fingers and the toes. So you've got all this blood there waiting for instruction on what should it do, what should it fight, where should it flight to. But there's no lion, so now what? And the skin receptors will then start to tingle to remind the brain that they've got all this blood, but they don't have an instruction. Now, the brain, as we heard earlier, has other problems with that conflict going on. So the skin receptors go offline to conserve energy, and they wait. But you will experience that as a numbness. And of course, because you're panicking already about what's going on in your body, I'm sure you're going to be thinking, I'm having a stroke, or I'm going to faint or collapse. And that, of course, releases more adrenaline. So you see the vicious cycle. When you panic, your breathing also gets faster and shallower. So you're breathing up here. You're taking in too much oxygen and you're breathing out too much carbon dioxide. And one of the problems with this is that the overbreathing leads to hyperventilation syndrome. And this gives you symptoms like dizziness, tingling hands, tightness in your chest, a feeling like you're suffocating, even muscle spasms. And this is not dangerous. It's just really indicating to the brain, I actually don't have enough carbon dioxide. And like I said, it's not dangerous, but it certainly feels that way. Now, in my next video, I'll be covering CBT tips. But for today, here's a quick bonus one. If you can work with your breath, you'll be able to reset yourself. Slow and low, not deep breath. So slowly inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. And then slowly exhale for 6 seconds. And you would continue like this for 1 minute. And this is you calming yourself and also restoring your blood gas balance, which will calm your brain. And this form of breathing will tell your brain, I'm safe. Before I go, I'd like to remind you that panic can also mimic physical condition and vice versa. So please do go and have a medical check if you're not sure. There are certain cardiac and pulmonary conditions, even temporal lobe epilepsy, that look very, very similar to panic. But if you've done all of that and there's no medical reason for what's happening to you, probably it's panic. And that's what the series is all about. If this has helped you, please share and subscribe and join me for the next installment where I'll be showing you more CBT technique for what to do when the logic brain goes offline and fight or flight has hijacked you.